Thanks for stopping by the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, being subbed. If you're not, hit the button. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into the real of reality TV.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy, make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it, I wanna see it. See how rewind, when we rewind, feel so.
What is up, guys? Listen, let's just go ahead and get into this. So Shamea, she recently did an interview, so clearly she's back for season 17. And I know a lot of people were like, yeah, she can be done. I will say I'm really indifferent towards it. In the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, this was the housewife that they needed all along. But as time went by, it was definitely not what a lot of people were expecting. I will say I kind of was getting exhausted with it, but I will give her a little bit of grace because I feel like Shamea is a people pleaser in a lot of ways, even though she's living a life that a lot of people dream of. I believe it's definitely the one that Portia feels that she deserves. I still stand on that. I also just believe that maybe she just needs to have another opportunity to really showcase herself, but we shall see. But a lot of people are just tired of her. But listen, she did that so-called apology video at the end of the last season after the reunion aired, and she was doing like an apology to every single person individually on video, and I did feel that that was very cringe, very, very cringeworthy. I just feel that because she's gotten a lot of heat and a lot of backlash, she doesn't know how to navigate these social media waters. But I also feel like, girl, if you just want to be on this show because you like the attention, because I do believe that, I believe she likes attention and a lot of people pleasers. So it's a bit conflicting. Just my personal opinion. A lot of people who are people pleasers don't really like the spotlight. They don't really like to be seen a lot. So that's why it's a bit questionable for me. I just believe that in some ways it's like she just wants to be good with everybody, maybe not really being a people pleaser, but she just wants to make sure she's good with everybody, but she also does like the attention. So she's living this very rich life. I believe there are a lot of people who, well, there's a number of people, I will say, that are in the surrounding areas of Atlanta who definitely are really living a very rich life that don't care to have the attention. And that's why you couldn't pay them to be on this ratchet show. Because let's be clear, the Real Housewives of Atlanta has definitely been in that arena for a period of time, at least. I don't believe that it was like when it first came out and Bethany tried to pin it in that place of it being ratchet and ghetto. That was clearly classist and a bit racist and all of that type of stuff, because here you have this white woman who's on the New York franchise talking about Atlanta ladies being ghetto. I didn't like that. But the women were not polished for the most part. Some were trying to put on airs as if they were living a life that they really were not living. And I get that. But as they started really getting those checks, then they were able to up level and do all of the things that they were able to do. Up level their lifestyles. Some had up leveled their faces. You know what I mean. But anyway, Shamea, she's been living well for a long time with her husband. She likes attention. But if you're going to like the attention, then maybe you need to just figure out a way where you're not even seeing the comments on social media and pay somebody to handle your social media for you so it doesn't bother you, so you can stay unbothered, because people are going to feel how they're going to feel. So she recently did an interview and she's talking about the new cast members. And even though they haven't all been officially announced, it's clear that K. Michelle is going to be one of those cast members. And some are saying Pinky, who is the owner of Slutty Vegan and some other restaurant establishments also, is also going to be a cast member, but that has not been officially announced. But we've seen clips of Shamea, Pinky, and K Michelle filming together at some event. But let's just get into what Shamea had to say about the ladies.
Is there a person in the cast that you decided, I like you, but I don't want to do life with you?
But it's a couple of them.
Okay. Okay.
I'm happy that we got new castmates, so now we can do life with some of them.
Okay. We're not calling their names. We're not doing it.
I think when you watch season 17, you'll see who I want to do life with and who I don't want to do life with.
Got it. Because I feel like
I want to do film and TV and like acting with some of them, and then when I go home to my real life, I don't want to be a part of their life.
And the thing is, it's so crazy because the show is real life, but you have to separate it because
I don't separate it. Real life is real life, right?
Yeah.
But some of them can't separate. Some of them are just always on acting.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, is this an audition? What is happening? The girl.
I have to ask you this because I would be remiss if I. Is there a person in the cast? Remiss if I do not ask you this. Do you miss, especially being in that setting? You know how you could just look across at a person and
girl, we used to be cutting up like that.
You know, like
I was excited for last season. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna cut up, we're gonna have so much fun. I can't wait.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I think that's Kelli for me now.
Okay, so you got that person in there. You just like
you know, or I'll be like, I can't look over her, I'm gonna laugh. And this is a very serious moment. We ain't supposed to be laughing right now.
Yeah.
But I look and it's like, let me just cover my face. If I even catch her looking at me, I'm
gonna laugh.
Cry.
Yeah. Remiss if
Listen, it may be the unpopular opinion, and a lot of people, Portia has a lot of fans and some stans, clearly, because the way from the beginning of that marriage, when when they announced that they were in love, dating, and then they were engaged to be married 30 days after they had been dating, and how people were celebrating it. I remember that was back in the days when the pandemic was going on and Clubhouse was a thing. And I used to sit and listen in some of the rooms as I was multitasking. But I heard some of the conversations, and when I was hearing how people were just so up for Portia in this situation, it was appalling. But anyway, she clearly has a lot of people that just root for her, even in the wrongdoings, okay? And it may be the unpopular opinion, but I am not going to disagree with what Shamea is saying. Yeah, Portia has been acting on that show for years, and it is supposed to be reality. And one of the reasons why a lot of people have been disappointed by the so-called reality is because people are not being real and they're faking a lot of stuff. She's just one of them. I'm not saying she's the only one, but we know clearly that Shamea and Portia were supposedly best friends for years, and then they had a falling out. But maybe Shamea is in her I don't give a F era right now. And maybe she's going to stand on it, because some people are saying, all right, don't come back later whining and crying when Portia is doing this and Portia's doing that. Somebody right here says, always throwing shade, then start crying and begging for forgiveness after the fact. Maybe that's what she did before. Maybe at this point in time, she's gotten her feet wet. She's experienced what she's experienced. She's gotten the knocks and the bruises and all of that stuff from the first season of being an actual peach holder, because we know she's been on the show for a while before now. So yeah, maybe she is at this point in time. It's like, you know what? I'm good on all that. I tried. I just have to be me, and this is who I am. And if this is who she really is, I'm I'm okay with that. I would rather people be real than to be fake. And the apology video that she did, I was not buying it. I wasn't feeling it. I wish she didn't do it. She should have just stood on what she stood on, allow the time to go by, and then other stuff is going to come out, because all this back and forth with Simon and Portia in the courts and the prenup and the liens and all the other stuff is so much mess. It's other stuff to focus on. We don't care about your relationship with Portia, who's 40 something and you're 40 something. Okay, you were best friends since you were teenagers. Do you know how many people who used to be best friends, real tight and close back in the day, are no longer even speaking anymore? And it's not always because there's a falling out. A lot of times it's just life just happens. Your life goes in that direction, my life goes in the other direction, and that's just it. I had a best friend for years. We were in elementary school and life happened. I it would be cool if we connected again and how you doing? I'm doing this, I'm doing that or whatever, just to catch up. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to try to be buddy buddy with her again because our lives are different. That's just the way it is. But anyway, clearly she's talking about Portia, and I'm quite sure she's talking about Phaedra because we know Phaedra is definitely the actress, okay? She had been on Real Housewives of Atlanta for years, not really being her true, real, authentic self. So I'm quite sure she's talking about frickin' frack. But you guys let me know what you think in the comment section. But like I said, it may be the unpopular opinion, but I believe that she's probably right now just in her I don't give a F era. Y'all gonna think what you're gonna think about me, whatever it may be, is not good enough for you. If you don't like it, then that's what it is. And if you like it, I love it. I have to be me. And I just want to be who I really am on this show. And I just feel that she's just trying to get her footing when it comes to being a peach holder because it is different than being a friend of. That's why Cynthia is cool with just being a friend of. You don't have to share all of your life. But I still do question, why is it even necessary if you're going to be a peach holder and be an actual housewife that your husband has to be around, because her husband was only really physically shown in the first episode, the season premiere, and in the last episode, the season finale. He didn't even show up to the reunion. Any other time we saw his face, it was on FaceTime. So to me, it's like they either need to get rid of that requirement or you can't be a housewife. But it doesn't make sense for that requirement to be there anymore. So maybe they dropped it, since you don't even need to be married to be on the Housewives anymore. It's just ridiculous. Because in the first season of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, everyone was married except for Sheree, who was going through a divorce. So she was still technically married. It just wasn't final because she'd been holding out for those 7 figures that she never got. And Kim, who was dealing with a married man. Okay, so it's just really ridiculous at this point. But anyway, guys, you let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, speaking of something that we need to talk about in the comments, because listen, this story is just crazy. So, Ferrell, however you pronounce her last name, Kelli, restraining order placed against her for now, temporarily at least. A judge ordered her to stay 30 yards away from a neighbor who claimed she entered the property without permission. The petition alleged that Kelli had to be physically restrained and removed due to bizarre behavior and verbal threats, and requested that she receive appropriate psychiatric and psychological services. It's a trip. So the plaintiff, however you pronounce the first name, last name Cash, claimed on August 9th, Kelli Potter Ferrell aggressively entered my private patio through my private gate in a violent manner without permission. Kelli Ferrell denied the claims. Cash said Ferrell was accompanied by others. She added this incident occurred after her vehicle was booted for again violating guidelines by parking in a narrow driveway, which is also a designated fire lane. Ferrell, 40, owns a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2784 square foot home in Atlanta, Georgia. Cash is an HOA board member. Oh, Lord. Those HOAs is a trip. Trust me, I know. The petition alleged that Ferrell had to be physically restrained and removed, during which time she engaged in bizarre behavior while making a series of erratic verbal threats, some of which were clear and others that were unintelligible. She claimed there was video footage of the incident. Cash asked the court to order Ferrell to stop harassing and intimidating her, for her to stay away from her and her family, and for her to receive appropriate psychiatric and psychological services. The judge granted a temporary protective order, but only ordered Ferrell to stay 30 yards away, most likely since the two are neighbors. A hearing has been set for the 22nd of September on whether the order will become permanent, and it probably won't, I suspect. But anyway, a rep for Farrell tells Us Weekly, since the announcement of Kelly's involvement with the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Mrs. Cash has engaged in a concerning pattern of behavior directed at Kelly and her family. Out of respect for all parties, we will not comment further at this time. We strongly urge that Kelly's privacy and that of her family be respected, and we caution against the spread of misinformation. Some people in the comments saying Shamea thought she upgraded France. Someone said Kelly deserves all the spotlight after coming for Portia straight out the gate. Oh Lord, these Portia stands. Let's see how she navigates all of this attention. Somebody said, bet she won't run up on Big P like that. Kelly gets what she gets. She came out the gate for Portia for the spotlight. So let's see how she navigates the constant attacks. Lil Hobbit came for P on last season for spotlight, and P didn't give her. Well, here's a spotlight for you now. And see, and I'm of the mindset of this person right here. I think there may be more here. It's not uncommon for people of color to move into a mostly affluent white neighborhood and get picked on by neighbors. Listen, I don't know. None of us were there. But when I say that the plaintiff, the person who filed the complaint, who asked for the restraining order to be put in place, that person being on the HOA board, to me, it seems fishy because a lot of these HOAs are ruthless. Ruthless. I have a couple. The home I live in is in one HOA, and some property that I own is in another HOA. And I've been dealing with hell with these HOAs for the past couple of years, as I've been dealing with some personal issues in my life. It's just really ridiculous. But again, I don't know what happened, but if there's proof, I would assume that there would be video. Hopefully, if they're claiming that this happened, that they have some video proof that this woman, Kelli Ferrell, came onto this woman's property uninvited and so-called violently or aggressively, coming onto her property and having to be physically restrained. Physically restrained could just be someone touching her and asking her to leave. I don't know. And just because she's short, I'm not going to say that she doesn't have that type of power or aggression within her. But I don't know. I'm just saying it's a bit much for me, and I predict that the restraining order will not become permanent. I definitely, because usually they will go ahead and grant a temporary restraining order just for the sake of them covering their own, what's, just in case something happens before they can actually have a real hearing. So they most of the time will go ahead and grant a temporary restraining order, but it doesn't mean that they're going to get the permanent one. And so, with that being said, I suspect that it will not become permanent. But I believe this clearly will be something for this season that is going to be discussed. And on the heels of her ex-husband doing that press conference and doing the interview that he did with Tasha K, and all of the things that he has alleged and his legal team has alleged about her and the court system and all of the judge and the court reporter or the court clerk, whoever, all of this different stuff, it's just a lot. And I believe some of it is definitely to smear her name, for sure. But like I said, I don't believe everything that the ex-husband said about her was a lie. I do believe him when he talked about the business funds being, frivolously used and spent on other things that were not supposed to be used for the business. And the reason I believe that is because we've just seen how she was doing life on this last season, that she was having her stylist and all of these wardrobe changes and all of the trips and this person coming with them and the makeup artist, and she's got the bodyguards and all of the different things and all that stuff, it costs money. And it's like, really? And then we just know, period, that there are people who have businesses and they use the business funds for other stuff. It happens. So I'm saying that I believe him on that. All of the other stuff, I don't know. But anyway, hopefully she can work this out and resolve this, because I like her. She's loud. She's a bit much, but I don't dislike the woman. I just, hopefully this gets resolved for her and it works out, because it's a lot. she just had the grand opening for her second location for Nana's Chicken and Waffles, and hopefully it does really well. And, she's got a family. She's got 4 daughters, that she has to think about and raise and whatever. So this is a lot, but I'm glad that she wasn't arrested. It doesn't say she got locked up. It's just she had to be physically, they say, restrained, and she had bizarre behavior or whatever and so-called verbal threats. But with this person who's alleging this being someone who is on the HOA, yeah, I question that for real. So anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Thanks for being here, liking, and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.